All right, welcome aboard. It's time for another Get Stuck on Sports Thumb Coast TV edition. I'm your host, Dennis Stuckey, and let's look back at the past week in boys and girls basketball, and we'll throw a little hockey in at the end because I like to do that. We'll start with the ladies first, and we'll start in the MAC Red. We're winding down towards the second half, finally, of the girls' schedule. There's still quite a bit to get caught up on because they started later than the boys, and then we had all the bad weather canceling games. So they're playing a little catch-up, so there's a little bit of time for teams, so the races are a little more spread out. There's more teams involved than on the boys' side, where we're kind of coming down the backstretch of things. But Eisenhower's the top team in the red. They're 4-0 in league play, followed by Dakota, who's 3-1. And then you've got Port Huron High at 2-1, still in the race and with a game in hand to the teams that are in front of them in the standings. And PH had a big win last week over Dakota, but they couldn't back it up with another big win, and they lost a game to Grosse Pointe South, a team they probably should beat, but they lost 56-41 in that one. And so that was a tough loss for PH, but it was their first loss in league play. So they still have an opportunity. They play 3 games this week, so it's very busy as they play a little catch up here. But they'll have a rare home and home with Utica Ford, where they'll go to Ford to play, and then Ford will come up here and play. And then at the end of the week, they get Grosse Pointe North, and that's a game that they absolutely have to win. So worst case scenario, they've got to try to win 2 of these 3 games this week. Split with Ford, and take care of business at home against Grosse Pointe North and keep yourself in the race in the red. In the blue, Fraser is really starting to look like the team to beat. They're 10-1 this year. They're 3-0 in play in the blue. Chippewa Valley is 3-1, but they've been beating the weaker teams in the conference, and overall they're 6-7. So they're not a bad team. They're just an okay team. The problem is that's all that our area teams are right now. Marysville's been very inconsistent. They're not a bad team. They're just an okay team right now. But at 2-1, they have an opportunity to still be in this thing, and they've got a huge game. It's actually Monday evening tonight against Port Huron Northern. They go to Northern. Overall, the Huskies are 3-8, so you say, well, that's not a very good record, but they're actually not a bad basketball team, and they're 1-1 in league play, and they've already beaten Marysville once this year at the Jim Weimer event back around Christmas time, and that was at Marysville. Didn't count as a league game, but the Huskies could be coming into this one confident that they can compete against Marysville, and the question remains, which Marysville team is showing up to play in this game? Is it the one that's really good or the one that sometimes struggles a little bit? As far as Marysville is concerned, they did beat Stevenson back on Friday, 53-26. That was expected. Northern hasn't played in a little while, so the Lady Huskies might have to knock a little rust off tonight when they take on Marysville. In the MAC Gold, it's St. Clair or bust, and their closest competitor is actually Marine City, and the 2 teams play each other at St. Clair on Friday night. Hopefully that game still means something, but the Saints just keep pounding teams. They're 5-0 in league play. They're 11-2 overall. They crushed Fitz 56-29 on Friday night, and they blew out L'Anse Creuse. They had to go to L'Anse Creuse, and at the time, that was the team that they were tied for first place with, and they blew them out by 26 at their place. So St. Clair has just been rolling. And as Coach Pietrkowski likes to remind me, he has a veteran team, and it was a big week for Gracie Picklehop. She was their leading scorer in both of those wins. But the Saints just keep rolling along. They've got 2 home games this week, Fitz early in the week, and then that Marine City game on Friday. Marine City is 3-1 in league play, and they're really the only team that has any chance at this point of being a problem for St. Clair. But the first time these 2 teams met at Marine City, St. Clair kind of blew them out. The Saints are really good, I guess is what I'm just trying to emphasize here. In the BWAC, it is basically a 2-team race. There's 5 games to go in the BWAC season. You have Yale at 9-0. You have Armada at 8-1. and you have everybody else. And everybody else is at least 4 games back with 5 league games to play. Do the math. They're not catching up. Those teams aren't going undefeated, and Yale and Armada aren't losing out. In fact, they can't lose out because they play each other, so somebody's got to win that game. Yale should win this week. They play at Algonac. Algonac's still looking for a win in league play. Then you've got Imlay City has Elmont. They should win that, but again, Imlay City's chances are they have to win out and they have to have everybody else lose. So it really doesn't matter at that point. The big game in the league this week is between Armada and Croslex. Armada needs that win. Yale is going to win this week. They're going to beat Algonac. I think they beat Algonac by 56 points the first time the two teams played. Yale's going to beat Algonac. So Armada, to keep pace, is going to have to beat a good Croslex team. Croslex has fallen out of the race, but Croslex is still a very good basketball team, and they are dangerous on any given night. By the way, Armada coming off a big win. They basically knocked Imlay City out of the race last Friday when they beat them 62-36 at Imlay City. So good job there. Yale got another win, 57-27 over Elmont on Friday. All right, so that's what's going on with the ladies. And again, other than the BWAC, the MAC still has a lot of girls basketball to be played league-wise. But on the boys' side, we're coming down the stretch now. And starting, let's stay in the BWAC first because, again, at least in boys, it's a 3-team race instead of a 2-team race because Croslex, Yale, and Imlay City are all within 2 games of each other. Croslex is 9-0. They're in the top spot. Yale is 8-1, a game back, and Imlay City is 7-2, 2 games back. And Croslex and Imlay City play on Tuesday up in Croslex. Must-win game for Imlay City. If they lose this one, they're going to be out of the race. There's, again, 5 games to go in league play in the BWAC. Spartans can't afford to stub their toes and fall any further behind in the standings. And for Yale, they're going to beat Algonac at the end of the week. They've got a game with North Branch. Yale will be the favorite to beat North Branch, but North Branch is a tricky team. Even though record-wise they're not terrific on any given night, they have shown that they can pull off an upset in the BWAC. So it'll be an interesting week of boys play. On Thursday, I was in Richmond, saw Croslex's game against Richmond. Croslex won 60-47, so it sounds like they had a rather easy go of it. This was actually 32-31 going into the fourth quarter, and Richmond had 3 possessions in which they could have tied or taken the lead, and they missed 2 free throws and they missed 2 layups. And when they couldn't get that bucket to go ahead, then Croslex turned it up a notch and did Croslex things in the fourth quarter and ended up pulling away and winning by 13 in that game, but it was a lot closer game than the final score would indicate. Yale did not have a close game. They blew out Elmont 71-34. Imlay City rolled against Armada 79-51, and North Branch beat Algonac 63-45. So again, Croslex has a 1-game lead over Yale, and Imlay City is 2 games back, and the big game in the BWAC will be Tuesday night up in Croswell when the Pioneers host Imlay City. And again, a Croslex win might make it a 2-team race between Croslex and Yale, and they don't play again until the last day of the regular season. So mark that one on the calendar. I believe it's February the 20th is the last day of league play in the BWAC. All right, on to the MAC again. And again, we're coming down the stretch. There's only 3 games left in the MAC regular season for league play. And in the MAC Red, Friday night, you had 4 teams tied for first place, but they were all playing each other. So at the end of the night, there were 2 teams tied for first place. Unfortunately, Port Huron Northern was one of the 4 teams, but they're not one of the 2 teams. They lost to Dakota. Again, the final score was 68-52, but for 3 quarters, this was a really close game. It was tied at the half, 29-29. It was a very physical game between these 2 teams. Normally, I don't cut any slack to the referees, but this was a tough game to officiate because there's 2 ways you can do it. You can let everything go and then we have a riot. or you can call everything and then there are no players left at the end of the night because everybody's fouled out, because literally you could have called a foul every time down the floor against one team or the other. So what they did was they tried to pick and choose their spots, which worked for most of the game. But once Dakota pulled ahead in the fourth quarter and got a 10, 11 point lead in the game, an incident occurred. And Amir Moreland for Northern wasn't even the guy that committed the foul, but a Dakota player got fouled from behind, thought it was Amir. It was actually Cam Haryu that bumped into him. And it really wasn't that vicious of a foul anyways. But the kid kind of snapped because it had been a physical game. And now with the score kind of out of reach, you can let your emotions come through a little bit more. So he kind of threw Amir to the floor, which of course caused a skirmish, making up words now. And Lincoln Watkins got involved and other players from Dakota got involved. A parent got involved. Nothing major. They just came out onto the floor and security reminded them that they needed not to be out on the floor. But at the end of it all, when the smoke cleared, the two guys that were involved in the altercation were the two guys that got off scot-free. There was no call against Amir Moreland. There was no call against the guy that threw him to the floor. It was other guys that were standing around who got tossed out of the game or fouled out of the game. So it was a weird moment, but that's a heated rivalry, and you will get a round 3 of Northern and Dakota. It'll happen in the postseason when they meet in the districts, which unfortunately are being hosted by Dakota. But Dakota and Roseville were the two teams that came out with wins on Friday. So they're in the lead with 3 games to go. They have a 1-game lead over Chippewa Valley and Port Huron Northern. Port Huron Northern's next game is huge because they play Roseville. And that's a must-win game for the Huskies if they want a share of the league title. All right, in the MAC Gold, Warrenwood's Tower, really good. I saw them against PH last week. They've got 2 guys that are kind of special, and they beat up on the Red Hawks in that game. They're 7-0 in the league. They have a 1-game lead over New Haven. New Haven eked out a very tough win over St. Clair, 68-64 on Friday night, and that was a devastating loss for the Saints. For the Saints to win a share of the MAC Gold title, they have to go undefeated the rest of the way, and they have to have Tower and Tower lose all of its games, and New Haven can only win 1 more game. And New Haven and Tower play this week, so the Saints will be rooting for New Haven in that one. But that was their second loss to the Rockets and second tough loss to the Rockets. The Saints also have a game against Lakeview this week. They're better than Lakeview, but Lakeview is a tricky team. You can't just walk out and expect to win. Got to play good basketball there. In the MAC Silver, where did East Point get so good? They're 7-0. Centerline is 6-1. They play each other this week, and that's the battle for first place in that league because everybody else has been officially eliminated from the race. Although Marysville and Marine City are playing for third place right now. Both teams are 3-4. Marysville has a gimme game early in the week when they play Mott at home. They've got a big game against Centerline later in the week, and depending on how Tuesday's game between Centerline and East Point goes, that might be a must-win game for Centerline, which would make it tougher for Marysville. Marine City should get a couple of wins this week. They go on the road, but they go to South Lake and they go to Mott. Mott hasn't won a game, and South Lake is a game behind Marine City, but they're not really a strong team, and the Mariners have actually been playing really good basketball. All right, just want to finish up real quick with some hockey here. Saturday, Salem. Did you know Salem's team name is the Rocks? I'm not making that up. They're the Salem Rocks. They beat Port Huron Northern 3-2. Havens and Harris were the goal scorers for the Huskies. Lake Orion beat Port Huron Unified 8-0, and Livonia Churchill edged Anchor Bay 2-1. Gavin Sherby scored. He has 4 goals in the last 3 games for Anchor Bay. They beat Grosse Pointe North Friday 7-3, and Finn Aprea had 3 goals in that win. He also had 2 goals in a 4-1 win over Farmington on Thursday. Thumb Legion beat Gladwin 3-1 Thursday. Peyton Bowerman with 2 more goals. Cole Bund had a hat trick on Wednesday as they beat the M1 Griffins 8-2. Lakeview over PH 5-2 back on Thursday. And Northern got a shootout win over Jackson Lumen Christi 2-1. So the Huskies did pick up a win this week. And that is everything that's gone on since last Wednesday in the world of sports in the Blue Water area. Thanks for watching. I'm Dennis Stuckey, and this has been the Get Stuck on Sports Thumb Coast TV edition.